Right, Alex, you want to take it away?
Yeah, hi everyone. Okay, so the first issue or question is should be, and we touched on that like last meeting, I think. Now there was a question from a customer of cross-linking, like one other use case for tracking the external issues, um, being able to keep the links from, for instance, commands or some other external stuff into the GitLab issues. So now that I think that we wanted to store the external issue to be able to know like which issues were kind of not imported or something happened there. So I wanted to track those external issues for that situation. And now it seems there's one additional issue, additional case to store those. My question there is, do we want to add that field to the issues table, or should we add a different table where we want to track this connection? So that's the technical part that needs to be answered. Yeah, and I'm not sure if that's for MVC. Probably not for MVC. We're still working on getting this MVC out, so that's probably going to come as a next iteration. Although to keep in mind is that if we add it for the next iteration, then anything that's imported within MVC will not have the capability of linking back to the GitLab issues from within, for instance, commit references and so on. So yeah, that's one thing. Anyone?
So as far as what's in scope for MVC, I know that this was not in scope. I know we talked about it and it was nice to have and all, but this was definitely not required for the MVC according to what we define as MVC.
Yeah, so I'll leave it to the end. Maybe we can like sneak it into MVC because it's not a big task, so to say. It's just adding a field, which on its own can be a big task because it's adding to the issues table, which is a big table, and then there is a process to do that. But other than that, just storing the key there it's a one-liner. But yeah, we will see if we can stick that in. That would be great. But if not, just as an awareness. So then there is the next thing is we decide that we will allow multiple imports even from different projects into same GitLab project. And we kind of need a way to show this, like to have a reference for the whoever imports it to know what was imported before or where that status stands on. So that's something to be tracked on or defined, I guess, on the UX level.
Is it enough for the MVC in that just to label the issues that have been imported with a unique label each time the import is run?
We talked about that. That was a good solution.
Yeah, well, labeling is somewhat different from what I'm saying here is like how many times the import was actually run and by whom and on which projects. So like if you import once and you don't keep any kind of reference back to what was imported, when you go next time to the import page, you can pre-import the same project, although it was already imported. So maybe you want to have some sort of reference there.
Like an audit history place where you go to see these are the things that have already been imported on this day.
Like this is the project that was imported on this day by this person. And again, like currently I do store a bit of information, but it's not ideal because it's stored in a JSON format in the all that is related to the import data. So there is a bit of history. The other question is where that should be displayed. Should we have a separate screen for that just to go and see it? So where would that fit into the whole? Because like right now we don't have a dedicated page for the imports. It's all done on the issues page. Then how does that fit into the whole story? Like with Holly, I think we discussed something like having maybe a tab on the same page where we do the import, but yeah, I don't know what's the progress on that yet. I just came to them and I posted as a question. Then there is the Markdown parsing, and I think Jarka can take on that.
Yeah, so basically the first iteration is assigned to a reviewer. So there are only a couple things that are not done there. A few things we don't basically support, like we don't support colored text. We don't support panels, and these are the most important thing, I think. About colors, we could extend our markdown, but I think it's not. I don't know what release you want to have MVC done, to be honest.
I think it's okay for the MVC to not do everything as long as we just
Yeah.
allow things that will not, and we don't blow up on things. So, you know, if there is a color markdown, we don't like, you know, bomb and create something. So if all happens, it's just the text remains black.
That's what we do now. That's what we do now. And also, what we don't do now is we don't extract mentioned users and linked issues. So as Alex already talked about, we need to import issues identifier first for linking issues, and we need to import users in order to be able to basically mention users. For 12.10, I think we could add parsing and uploading attachments, which is also not done yet.
Yeah, so one other thing is that if we do store the external keys and there are references within the text, like comments or descriptions, we can probably reuse those keys to link the issues now within GitLab, because we will have those references, so we can parse them, just update the parser to parse these types of references. So maybe we don't have to like completely change those links. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I would talk about it in more detail when we get to that point when we basically can start working on it. For now, we basically don't do that.
Okay, so another thing is like, when do we want to do this markdown? So this question popped up to me because so if we do, so why do I say we do it at the end of the import? If we do it at the end of the import, we can cache all of the references. For instance, the attachment ID, we can cache it and cache the mapping to the attachment within GitLab, then cache the issue to issue in GitLab, and so on. And then when we do parsing at the end, we have everything of that in cache, so we can do parsing like faster, easier than requesting the data, all of the descriptions or commands back from the database and do the reparsing on those. So that's one thing that maybe we can leverage and kind of move the parsing at the end. For now, because we're not doing reference parsing and so on, we can just do it at the time when we create the issue, because we only do description and we don't do this references. So that's one thing that like maybe we will change in the next iteration. We'll see. Just again, a technical question that kind of to be aware of, and we'll see how that goes.
I think there's also benefit in potentially maybe parsing twice, as in do the things that have no references at the time of import and then come back and add references in, because if anything breaks or if we interrupt or if there's any kind of issue there, at least we will have, you know, the markdown parsed for the items that were already imported, and we wouldn't leave it in a bad state. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes, and it also, well, the import might take quite long, so the users will have some valuable output already after the first parsing.
Yeah, perhaps. Yeah, that's how long should we keep the cache? I guess that's kind of self-explanatory now. Okay, so there is the label creation. I think last time for the MVC we discussed we can do the label link of the issue behind the scenes. In the workflow, if you'd open the wireframe from Holly, we have this page, the UI of creating the label. I'm not saying it adds a lot of complexity, but then there are questions like, what if I want to label with 2 labels these imports and 3 or 4 or more, and so on. So yeah, again, I'm not sure if that's for MVC. I think we decided for MVC we can do it just behind the scenes, just label with JIRA import some timestamp, and then on next iteration we'll probably do the more evolved UI with the ability to label it with the defined, like with the user defined label or so on.
Regarding that, I think that Gabe said that he wanted to have us define the label and just use a timestamp for now for MVC.
Right.
So I don't know if that makes things easier.
Yeah, it's just we don't have to do the front end part and the validations and all that stuff, I guess. So yeah, it makes it somewhat easier. And then again, on the wireframe, like there are 2 flows. The second one where we do, I think it's new project. We have a screen where we're showing this loading, the importing state. And then if there is an error, it seems that we go to an error screen. So to me, that sounds like we encourage people to rerun the import if an error happens. And I'm like not sure if that's what we want, or we instead want to have this reporting screen. Although like right now it's in green, it will probably have this imported fine, and these are the issues that did not import. So what action do you want to take? Yeah, just as a idea, I don't know.
I have concerns about that too, because I'm afraid that if we encourage them to run it again, that they're going to end up with the duplicates situation that we've been talking about. What I've been told is that is not an MVC, that's something that we'll be worrying about in the future and not to worry about it for now.
Yeah, then there is one more question I have on one of the, on same flow, the last screen is, I guess, where they click import into an existing project. Like, where does that screen actually live? Does it, because if you have a drop down to pick from projects you want to import into, like GitLab projects, then it sounds to me like you are on project X and you can pick to import into project Y, which to me doesn't make too much, like, say, it can get confusing really fast because you picked something and then you don't realize where did those issues go to.
Yeah, I agree, and that one might need to be revisited because if they're already, this is for the new project, correct, or for the?
Yeah, for the new project. That's the screen that I see on the new project flow.
And your question is, let me just pull up the screen really quick and share it.
Oh yeah, I should have shared the screen.
Is it?
Yeah, it's that one, the last one.
Here. Okay.
I'm asking if we should actually have this the first like drop down, or we should remove it because we know what project we are in right now.
I agree.
Yeah. Yeah.
When we are on the project, like the where the button is right now to import from CSV, that is already a known project, and if I click on the button there, it imports it into that project. Mm-hmm. For the flow where we do the new project, you also don't have to pick it because you are on a create a new project screen. So whatever project is being created, we're going to import the issues into. So either way, you're in the context of an existing project or a new project, but you wouldn't pick a different project from there.
So one thing that is missing from this particular flow is the actual process of creating the project. That's something that, again, needs to be added in, but I was told, don't worry about it right now. It's not in VC. Let's do research and find out what all we need to include as part of this process. But that is missing from here, is at what point do we go through the other steps that are involved with creating that project?
The create project flow is also kind of shifting stance right now because we are looking to change how that works. Mm-hmm. So the new project creation, I mean, there's a flow right now that we're not happy with and we're changing it. So it may be good just to stay away from that for now. until that settles a little bit, and then we'll weave this in.
Okay.
But we can stay in touch. I mean, we can, you know, Daniel and I can show you where we are on that.
Okay, that would be great. Thank you.
Mhm.
And I shared the wires in chat in case anybody wants to take another look at those. So then, Alex, do you think that I need to go back and revisit this new project flow sooner rather than later? Is that something that that we need to go ahead and start?
No, I like for the MVC we don't need it, and then I think we can talk later on that. I just saw it and wanted to raise like the question rather sooner than later. So like we were kind of aware of, but it's not something important. Then I don't think most of the questions on this agenda today are not for the MVC. I think it's more of a preparation for the next iterations of the, sort of, and being aware of the things that are currently there that needs to be answered. So yeah.
Okay.
So maybe Holly, we can catch up with Daniel on this, like the three of us, just go over what we're doing on the import side,
That would be great.
so that you guys can like coordinate the changes from both sides.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Sounds good.
Holly, you're up, I think. You've
Yeah.
the next point.
I was muted. I didn't realize.
I'm up?
Yep.
Oh, huh. Let me look at the agenda. I didn't even realize I put something in here. I must have done it a couple of days ago. Oh, yes, I did. I'm so sorry. Okay, so can we accurately show the number of success failed attempts at the end of the import process? So Alex, I know you and I have talked about this a little bit, and it's possible that when I put this in, it was before I had as much information as I do now about it, but I feel that that's something that's pretty important to Gabe, and I also agree that it would be valuable to show. So just to confirm then, I think that you had said that we can show the number of successful imports, and therefore we can also calculate the number of failed imports to show at the end of the process, correct?
Like, it's a bigger question of what a successful import is, I guess.
Okay.
Because then the important issue and you skip the comment or an attachment, is that a successfully imported issue or not? I guess not. Then how do we track that? How do we count that? How do we mark an issue that has almost everything imported is just one comment missing, or I don't know. So, but if we talk strictly for the MVC, the issue was created, then the issue is imported, then yeah, we can count those, and then we can, in a lot of instances, count the ones that failed, just rescue the exceptions and so on. So, and also I think we are able, at least to some extent, to get the number of issues that are supposed to be imported in advance. Now, I'm not sure how that's going to work with, like, if you have to import 1 million issues or more from JIRA, would JIRA provide that number back to us in a single request or so on? But like so far, it seems to be providing the count of the issues or commands that you want to import. So I think we should be able to get that number in advance and then compare against that and provide a feedback like this, how many we wanted to import, and this how many we actually ended up with. So yeah, and yeah, that can be done in an MVC. And again, I think we're going to store that in that same JSON import data that we're storing right now, because we don't have a data structure per se yet, because we didn't use that for any other imports. And yeah, again, for the MVC cutting the scope, we'll do that there. And we should not be querying that data too much, so to say. So that should be okay performance-wise. So yeah.
Okay, then I made a note in the wireframes to include maybe some help information for the user as to what a failed versus successful import might mean, just so that that helps to hopefully minimize any confusion there. And then just let me know if there's anything that you need from me in regards to that particular piece.
But if we do have the ability to count success, partial success, and failure, maybe not for MVC, that would still be useful. So, you know, it'd be good if we could know that, yes, the issue was created, but there were some problems with some of the attachments or things, and then we could just count those as partial. We could see, you know, this many successfully imported, this many partial, and this many failed. And eventually then also provide a list, like a CSV list of all the issues that failed so that somebody can follow up. But this is not for MVC. I think for MVC, Alex, what you described is just really very acceptable.
So one more issue that it's a problem that I stumbled upon while the implementation was in review. For the POC, we did use the import state, which all of the importers do use currently. Now, none of the importers do re-imports, right? So if you imported once, you're done and you move on. Now, because of the re-imports and because we use the same data structure for the mirroring, with the JIRA imported projects, we have kind of a interesting situation where if you'll have mirroring on a repository enabled for the JIRA imported project, you may end up with situations where, I don't know, maybe, well, I kind of prevented it, but there are some edge cases probably that I didn't think of where you can end up, because mirroring is scheduled, it will actually do a JIRA import or something like that. Which it doesn't do now. Like, I've added specs to that, but there seems to be a kind of a shared object to share the state. So one obvious thing could be is that because we are using the import state to report progress on the import, when the mirroring will start, it will set the progress like in started, and on issue imported page, it will show also as started, as importing or something like that, although it does not do the import, for instance.
So is that a permanent state, or will it clear when the import is done? So I'm not sure.
It's just
one lasting effect.
We don't track the state for different imports. We just have one state object, and we use that for mirroring and for importing.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
so
okay.
when the import is done, it sets to finished, but then we do mirroring, I think, every 30 minutes or so, if mirroring is enabled for that project. And like every 30 minutes, you'll just, if you go to the issues import page, you'll probably get that it's in progress or something like that.
Okay, so it will show that import is in progress during mirroring.
Although it's not, but it will show just because the mirroring is doing some syncing.
But it's not gonna prevent you from being able to do your job. It is just inaccurate information at that point, right?
Yeah. I mean, it can also lead to confusion, like, oh, what's going on? Are we re-importing issues again or something like that? So that's a kind of a bigger problem.
Can we clarify that message that shows at that point to say that
we
either importing is in progress or mirroring is in progress, so that
we can do some hacking there. Again, how I solved it is add a flag into this same JSON data thing. So we're checking that if that flag is set, then this is actually an import of the issues. If that flag is not set, then it's just a mirroring. So we can use that, but that's a hacky way to do it. So we'd rather have a separate entity to track the actual JIRA import, I think. So yeah.
That's what I was saying last time.
Yeah.
I think that we need to add a separate state to track JIRA imports, and I think it's going to be quite cheap to do. It's just a new table, right? And a new association, which we can make has many association, which will allow us to track history as well if we want.
Right, yeah.
Do we want to make that table polymorphic? Like, is it useful to have it for potentially for future importers of different services?
I don't believe so, and the main reason is because the suggestions that are given in the handbook guidelines say to have separate tables for each. I mean, usually that would be a good fit. You know, to specify the type of the import. I think that would play nicely, but
I don't think
again,
it's good because, like, especially for the imports, every import is so very different from one another. Like, they will share very little information to maybe only the states, but again, depending from where you're importing and what you're importing, you can have various states, you can have various flows and behaviors. So it's probably okay to just have a JIRA import
yeah.
state or something.
I think the best thing to do is have one for each separate, and we can extend them as we see fit, and we can modify them. You know, they don't have to be all the same depending on the needs. Yeah, and from scalability point of view, each separate table is going to be way more lightweight than having everything in one table.
Cool, thanks. Cassio shared the documentation in the chat as well, so that's really useful. Thanks. Okay, I think we're out of
So
agenda items. Like, does anyone have anything else?
Just a quick question. So is this something that you're going to proceed with as part of MVC, or are you going to keep using the project import state?
I think I'm going to keep using, at least for now. I'm not sure if I'll be able to do it in the MVC. It's not a big change, but like, nothing is a big change, although it does take time. So again, I'm just trying to shy away from adding things, just to make sure that we do release it on time and we don't end up like missing the 1210 just because we added too many small things. But
so
yeah.
if that's the case, could we just make sure that we have the issue as like the first thing that we need to do, if we are going to extend it, you know, extend the MVC to make sure that we add that, so it doesn't slip away, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I'll make sure to add the issue, and we'll see. I hope I'd want to get to it in the MVC, but yeah.
Cool.
I think for the MVC, like, we have 2 iterations, and it depends, like, they're maybe slightly decoupled from the concept of what the MVC is. It becomes sort of marketable at a certain point once we have a certain number of features. And I think the first, what we call the first iteration, should be the first thing, should be like, what's the minimum amount we can do that we can run, even if it's not particularly valuable to customers. And then this kind of thing should be in the second iteration, or further down the line, which is still part of the MVC, but it's it gives us a working piece of software first.
Yeah, thanks, John.
Cool. All right. I think we're out of items, so we can give people half an hour of their day back. Thanks very much. If you think this is valuable and you want to do it again next week, please leave a comment in the Slack channel, which I've forgotten the name of, but it's, I'm sure, JIRA.
Something JIRA.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Thanks everyone for your time. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.